Hello everybody and welcome back for this week's episode of the Must Play New VR Games. This is where I give you some of my first impressions on the latest VR game releases and help you figure out which ones are worth your time or not. As always, I am Mateo311 and this is your channel for everything VR related. Okay, so today we're checking out 3 different games and they vary from, I'm pretty sure you guys will enjoy this, to it might be right for you to check out, and finally, oh dear God, stay away, what happened? This game makes me want to go blind. Okay, maybe I'm laying things on a little bit thick there, but let's start with that truly negative one, Hitman 3. I went in with the expectation that they would clean up the controls compared to the PlayStation and PC ports that we previously saw. I also expected that the graphics would get knocked down a few pegs, but in that category, dear Lord, did this way surpass my expectations in a bad way. Now I know they pushed that whole new graphic style because the Quest can't handle basically what Hitman 3 has to offer. So they went with the whole, hey, we're going to go cel shaded, tone down the graphics a little bit, but honestly, that wasn't enough. This is the type of game that should have never been ported to the Quest. It looks like the developers bit off more than they can chew. Not only does it rely on reprojection and have some of the worst reprojection artifacts that I've experienced in a game, like the text kind of gets jumbled as you move, stuff like that. If you're familiar with those reprojection artifacts, they're present, and they also go to the point of making the controls feel less smooth. So across the board, what I'm saying is this shouldn't have been ported, but I'll give you a few more examples. Now, there's usually some significant differences between how the game looks in a recording versus how it actually looks in VR, sometimes for better or worse. But one of the main things I have to point out that is extremely immersion breaking is the overall level of detail and how it has a consistent and extremely intrusive pop-in. If you're looking at a character from what would be roughly 10 feet away, they are not only blurry, but you see a massive amount of jaggies. Now, as you get to about 5 feet, things are clearing up, and when you get right up to them, yes, they do look better, but overall, this is a major killer to the immersion and looks terrible. And more issues like this extend throughout the entire game. From the very beginning yacht mission, where you're supposed to see a lot of people on the boat partying, instead you're pretty much looking at an unanimated blob of low texture people. But graphics aren't everything, and I would definitely get past that if all the other elements still felt good. It's kind of hard to say, but I think this is actually the worst port of Hitman 3 yet. Yes, they did do lots of improvements to the controls, but because performance is so bad, the controls still feel bad. Like you'll be reaching out to grab someone and collision detection isn't there, or you kind of go through them for a second. And this tends to happen when you have a game relying on reprojection. Collision is missed. It just happens. And that sucks. There's also like a hybrid of controls. Like it looks like they started with all the basic, button press controls and then added on top motion gestures, but all the button press things are still there, I guess, for people who like that, whatever the case may be. And then the gesture based stuff, like I said, just doesn't feel great. So it's really hard to get into this. Now, if you've never played the Hitman series and you have no other option, it's still a good game. Like Hitman is still a fun game, but oh my God, this is the ugliest version of it, and it really doesn't control great or run well. Now, I will say, I did get an email that they have another patch coming out that's supposed to like dramatically increase those LOD issues that I talked about, the level of detail. Those should be fixed. And they said 500 NPCs on the dance floor in one level. That's all great, but honestly, I only played through the first few levels, and I can't see them fixing this anytime soon. It's a really rough version, and I cannot recommend it, unfortunately. But let's move on to the next game, one that I can recommend, and that is Fracked. Now, Fracked is one of those over-the-top action-packed shooters that I usually relate to something like a B- Vin Diesel movie. It's roughly 5 or so hours of mowing down mutant-style creatures, some pretty intense climbing scenes, and some thrill ride skiing, which also occasionally includes mowing down enemies. While the storyline itself isn't very deep, I enjoyed it, and it has a nice little twist. So like I said, solid overall action-packed first-person shooter, so if that sounds like your style, this is an easy recommendation. Now, I previously played through this game, both on the original PlayStation VR and PC VR, and this version holds up well compared to those. Graphically, it's a nice-looking game, but it definitely looks a bit more bland compared to the PlayStation and PC versions, but mostly that comes down to lighting and post-processing effects. The world itself and the enemies still look pretty damn good, and besides a really crappy avalanche effect in the beginning of the game, I was fairly impressed with the overall graphics. Now, our last wildcard of a game is Rampage Agents, which is like a weird combination of hero shooter with Battle Royale, and there's also an adventure mode, which is co-op roguelite. So yeah, Overall, it's offering a lot, and getting into it, I played for about an hour and a half with a fellow content creator. Viking Princess joined me, and we were just blasting through. Unfortunately, it's not really populated right now, so we're fighting mostly bots, but I liked a lot of the aspects. So let's get into that. The title is going to be free to play with in-app purchases. So based on that and my experience in the game, if you happen to be a shooter fan, it's at least worth checking out. Now, some of the standout aspects to me was the game's huge array of unique weapons. Not only do they get style points, but a lot of them also have unique abilities, like dual firing modes, status effects, and there's also a huge variation on fire rate, magazine capacity, reload time, and number of modifications that can be added to each weapon. So that was definitely a standout for me. Now, when it comes to the characters themselves, yeah, they're kind of generic, nothing super special there. They each get one special ability, like one could throw out mines. The other one I was playing with can, pull out a shield for a few seconds. I only played with those two characters, so I don't know what the other two do. But basically, yeah, that's it. I think there's another one who goes into stealth mode, so he goes invisible for a few seconds. So, yeah, it's a hero shooter light. Like, it has a minor hero shooter aspect to it. There's also a grappling hook, so you can pull yourself around. Now, when it comes to the actual mechanics, it feels like they took a lot of inspiration from something like Population 1. It definitely has a similar feel when it comes to the gunplay and shooting. You're not climbing and gliding, though, except for your grappling hook that you could use every once in a while. They also have a mechanic where when you, pump your arms or at least move around, you run faster. Kind of changes up the gameplay a little bit. I feel like they just grabbed a lot of different elements from popular games and they mixed them together, and honestly, it works. It's a little clunky at times. I found the menu wasn't as intuitive and had to, use everything and drop down into the battlefield. Everything across the board was not as intuitive as some of the other more popular games out there right now, but it's definitely a nice mishmash. And the adventure mode appears to be a paid DLC. You could play it single player if you want, so you could get in there and basically you're mowing down hordes of enemies, and then there's going to be a boss, and it runs like a roguelite. And then as you, get further and further, you'll gain some currency and you can unlock skills like more health, more shield. You do more damage, your special abilities last longer, whatever the case may be. There's a pretty massive tree of upgrades that you can unlock over time. So that's cool. Kind of sucks that it was, locked and I didn't get to play it with someone else. But adventure mode did offer a really nice change of pace. Now, since the game is free, I could definitely recommend you check it out, but I can't really give any sort of verdict yet because I need to get in there when it's full of actual live people and not just me and Viking Princess killing all the bots on screen. Now, that was today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, you know what to do. Thumbs up. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. I'm really trying to hit that 100K mark. We're pretty close, guys. It's moving fast lately, so thank you for that. I appreciate all the support, and as always, I'll see you guys on next time.